Well, I was listening to my videos from this week and I realized that mm, sometimes when we are editing, we'll feel like what's called a red flag. But instead of a flag, it's more like a trigger word. That is something cultural. Sometimes it is well, world cultures. Uh, Sometimes it's about different mentalities, and you think, well, I should be sensitive to that one, or it triggers something from my own life. Uh, Whatever triggers can be anything, and red flags can be anything too. It's usually something shared, but no, it doesn't have to be shared. Um, it's something that can be personal, personal. Uh, and Well, here's the thing. I've heard and listened to people mention, and in my own life too, how these triggers are just misunderstandings. And of course, in other realms of life, it is going to be something that is just an association with. It's gonna sound bad. Oh, that am I gonna be sensitive enough for this? And sometimes you think there's no the phrase, there's no. It's just it's just like that, and that's the thing. Sometimes there is a choice to be made, and say, well, I'll be insensitive here, and I'll be understood there, or I don't care if I'm going to be understood there. I'll be sensitive here. So that's the way it is. That's the way it is. Mm, every road leads to Rome. There's a saying. And what better Rome than home? And you gotta roam sometimes. You gotta just roam out there. Anyway, I like to put titles on my videos. I usually don't like titles that are misleading. They usually trigger in me to kind of be unhappy and kind of argue. I like not triggers. I like titles that are going to be maybe beautiful, or I like Marcus Aurelius's catchphrases because they seem so pleasant. So, well, that's the word. A stranger, a stranger. I was riding on a van, and my mother was with me. It was probably her doctor's appointment, not mine. And he was discussing how in his face he had a lot of surgery, even though you couldn't tell that it was that he had metals. And I thought to myself, that poor man, when it gets hot, how is that going to feel? And even though you couldn't tell, because well, you just couldn't tell, you had to believe him, right? And he said, I can't believe that I was at a doctor's appointment, he said. And I was constantly asked, "Oh, but you're too young to be here. What are you doing here?" Like that was a red flag for people. That was a red flag because high populated area, yes, but we are highly populated in clinics and hospitals with people of third age. Well, he was. It's a prejudice. It's a red flag. It's it's a very it's bad education to treat someone that way too, because that's you are the client there. You are a patient of your doctor or client of the company. So so no, it's important. It's very important to make sure that everyone is treated kindly and not treated as a menace. That poor man. Let's say let's say he didn't have any kind of surgery. Let's say he had some sort of psychological issue. I wouldn't say that. That poor man. that was a good man. Oh, kind of like trying to sniff out the intruder. That's not right. That's not right. For anyone to just forget their roles and think, well, I'm going to my back a role that I used to have, and I'm trained for this. That's the same thing that happened with that gentleman that asked people to kill themselves. What was it that? And I say gentleman, but he had to study a script for a movie, and that script in from the movie, he kept it in his heart, in his mind, and he became a co until the age of 24 on average, and he asked them to castricize themselves. Is that the word? Castricize? Um, to amputate their genitals and then to commit suicide. That's horrible. That's horrible. So if you look at that, a person when I was a teacher, I did lab work. I did two projects in science that were lengthy, very involved a lot of research. But I can't take from those roles. I have a license in sleep medicine at this point, and I can't use any of those things to for a role that's going to be um, as if it were a role to enter and be manipulated. No, 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 no. There's a difference between influence and manipulation, but both are studied in nature, the nature of humans. So if one person is influential or manipulative, um, influential if it's a positive thing and leaves you free willed, manipulation if it takes your free will in some way or in a concrete way. Um, Either of those, they can be accidental or natural, they can be instinctual. It doesn't have to be that the person has crafted it or has studied it and is applying what they study. Now if they're applying what they study and you feel manipulated, you feel that you are in a metaphysics that is detrimental, then you should time, not stop everything maybe, but make time to see someone in mental health that can listen to your liberation from your 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 the mind control over you. Well, yes, you should seek an. That's what you have to do. Um, I do think that that would be a good idea, but I can't. I don't want to be held responsible for anything that you might do with what I said. It's an opinion. Mm, I have to protect myself. But I do wish you well. It's not easy to give opinions, and your life, a person's life, is a delicate thing. So to think of giving an opinion and how it might affect the person, that's a big responsibility. Because, well, you wish them well, but you can't think for them. You can't verify if everything's going well. If you can, well, that's a different situation. If you have that kind of, you know, opportunity or chance, it would be great. I mean, sometimes we just have so many things in our mind that we begin to erase certain memories. And sometimes it's not our fault, not really what we have in our mind, but physiologically from some sort of deficiency, boom, some sort of excess something, boom. But we can't just say, oh, that's because of this and that, because then what? You wouldn't have a nose, you wouldn't have feet, you wouldn't have sort of neurological arthritis. And arthritis is when the body starts to attack itself. So it's not a it's not really a good idea to think I'm going to remove a part of my body because it's attacking my brain. No, that's I had a I have a cousin that she said something very insulting to me a long, long time ago. And she said, "You don't know you have," she said to me, she was a little bit obsessed in that second. And I'm going to say that word obsessed in the term of she was compulsed to blurt out what she was imagining. She said that I had to lose weight because I didn't know if I had tumors in my body fat or something. That was very insulting. That was very insulting. That was very imaginative too. It was cruel, of course, very cruel. But did she know what she was doing or saying? She just blurted it out. Um, Sometimes a person goes a little bit crazed about something. It could be in a good way or a bad way. That was in a bad way to say that. That was very offensive, very intolerant, very racist. Uh, people's genetics and their trait is their private life. So if you ever catch yourself kind of like looking at someone and say, I have to help you, I have to do this. No, 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 no. That is an imposition. That is a cruelty. That is something a person is not going to thank you for. There's a saying. The saying is, I'm not going to say it's American, say it's very popular. See, I can't say those things. I don't know. I can't say it's a popular saying. It's an American saying. It's an American English saying. I can't say that. I'm just going to say it's a saying because it is. And the saying goes, slip of the tongue. What was I thinking? First, I was thinking about my cousin, an offensive thing. Oh, traits, genetics. You are what you eat. No, that's not what I was gonna say. No, no, no. uh, let's see. The saying that I was going to say, it's a very popular one. Let's see. All right, we're talking about the compulsion to tell someone what to do or what you imagine in your head. Or, oh, I had a lady once say to me, I don't like the way you look. First, we were very nice to each other. Then someone said no, because someone in front of her said some things. And I thought to myself, she looks different. She looks different than a lot of people here. And she's saying to me that she doesn't look like the way I look. I could say the same thing to her about her little genetic trait. I thought it was nice. I thought it was a nice, unique genetic trait. She had spots all over her body that looked like the giraffe spots. So these big, beautiful freckles. And I said, well, I don't like the way you look either. I could have just said, because of this or that genetic trait, but that would have been mean, right? Average, mean. And I just brushed her off that way. Because she was annoying me. She was bothering me, telling me I don't like the way you look. I don't care. I don't care. And that shut her up. She didn't talk to me again. I didn't talk to her. And then the moment passed. And that's it. It was a stranger danger. No danger there except just buzz off. So anyway, what was the saying that I was going to say? I like sayings. I have or had a book. I think I might have given away, but the book was called American Sayings and Proverbs. American Sayings and Proverbs. Oh, I love that book. I used to have a little one about quotations called Merriam-Webster, which were two different people. Merriam-Webster's dictionary. I love reminiscing. I had my neighbor, Mr. Bates. God bless you, Mr. Bates. Raymond Bates, God bless you wherever you are. That he pointed out it's not Merriam Webster as a woman called Miriam and her last name Webster. It did have a hyphen. So, of course, I could have like just paid more attention and just looked at how it's written and think that's Merriam and Webster. But the way I mentioned it to him, I said Merriam Webster. And he wanted me to say Merriam Webster with some time between. I don't know. He just pointed out that it was. I guess it's the way he interpreted and how I was a little bit submissive to that idea that I was wrong and he was right. Instead of thinking we're both right, I said Merriam-Webster, not that she, not that it's a she or that it's called the person is called Merriam-Webster as a name. So I gave in. There's a video on a young man, a little boy, a young boy, a minor, preteen, like pre-adolescent teen, that he told people that he told an interviewer that he was, how do I put this, that he influenced the whole classroom to think that they saw a spaceship, that it never really happened, that it was him. So he took the credit of something very peculiar and a phenomenon that everyone in, it's like saying, if I say a joke, if I say it the right way, everyone's going to laugh in the room. So he was trying to say, I influenced the whole room. So he said that they thought that they saw a spaceship. You know, that's possible. You know why? Because we have eyes to see, we have cones and rods. And those cones and rods will see our, I think it's pareidolia, yeah, pareidolia, or pareidolia, because it's not, of course, but an optical illusion based on the little pixels that we get. What do they call it? The photons that we get into our eyes. Uh, those photons you can pick it up and just see something else in a way that kind of blinds you to what's real. But what's real is usually because it's moving around. Uh, Painting, for example, that's what you see in the painting is what you are imagining, maybe from patterns that you've seen before. But it's not because you truly are seeing what's painted. When you see my face, you're gonna probably see it different than other people are gonna see it. I see some pictures of myself when I was 9 years old, and I think, wow, I was not overweight. Um, but why was it that someone I knew, a technician that was working on my prosthetic leg, on one prosthetic leg that I had back then, why did he keep saying that I had gotten overweight, that I was too overweight, that my prosthetic, that the he was lying. He was lying. But was he lying because of his eyesight, that he would see things in a distorted way? Or was it because he was trying to not take any responsibility in creating a new prosthetic leg? Or because he wanted to prevent a prosthetic leg to be um, really well crafted? Was it because of that? Was it because the he had too many clients, not enough time? Um, what was he trying to cover up? It doesn't matter now. It doesn't matter anymore. But back then I thought, oh, then a child cannot be told that they're overweight or underweight because then they'll overcompensate. And in the process, their weight is just going to be a yo-yo kind of weight. And not stay regular. The only way that a child can um, grasp weight management is to allow the child to manipulate their their poop, their regularity. To say, well, you're not being regular. You have diarrhea or you have constipation. Regulate your weight. I mean, regulate your poop. So when they're regulating their poop, they're regulating the weight because a child doesn't cook for themselves. It's the adult that cooks for them. Um, Weight has nothing to do with nutrition. It has to do good good poop has to do with nutrition. Good weight has to do with pooping correctly. So people sometimes don't care about how they poop. They don't care about being regular. They don't care about the fibers that help them to. Sometimes they do, and they just don't know. So they get all bent, humiliated, or offended because unfortunately, sometimes when we know something, we push a lot for others to know it too, either because they did know it and they forgot, or because we want them to know something and we don't know how to convey it without offending. So it's what's it called? It takes two to tango. Two to tango. So yeah, poop is very important for overall health, not just weight management. And weight management is something in scientific projects. It has to be manipulated uh, because, well, you want to fit into your suits or you want to have enough body fat for cold climates. Um, you want to make sure your calories are high when you're in cold climates because you want to have something to have, well, body heat for. Calories are not physical things; they are little packs of heat. And when people talk about calories, they're they're talking from a standpoint of um, using it in a jargon or a terminology that's uh, not not appropriate for everything. They use it as a quick way to mention their ideas on the metabolism of macronutrients. They have no idea. When it's mentioned, people hardly discuss it. Excuse me, the metabolism of micronutrients because they imagine, oh, it's the bulk, so that's what's making you bulky or you need more bulk. No, nonsense. Metabolism for every kind of mineral, substance, macronutrient, micronutrient, the metabolism of things. It's how to just, um, how do I put it, break down and build up again. It's a chemical synthetic thing. And of course, it involves combustion. It involves combustion because um, well, combustion is more about a specific substance, which is a hydrocarbon. I just jumped into hydrocarbons right there. Hydrocarbon, water, and oxygen. These are in particular the substances, not only the chemical formulas. So, you know, man, I remember a classmate of mine that he said he found my notes. I think he took it to see what I was thinking, or he could have been a spy. He could have been someone thinking, I want to see all these things, and but there are books in every place. You don't need to look at my notes to spy on it. The instructors say things. The notes are taken by what's in the class, what's in the books. Everything is repetitive. There's no need to spy on anyone's academic notes. You know what I really dislike about politics? It likes to copy what's in a book or someone writing something and start to interpret it and reinterpret it and making and creating a whole different, you know, situation with it, and the pyramid schemes. So I don't appreciate that. I don't appreciate that. Um, as human beings, we start to think, well, this would be appropriate for this. This would match that. That has to be prevented because there's this exception. Da, 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 da. Human beings will conjure up things that involve other people and themselves, as ideas, as inventions, as logic, and for that to just be told, oh, because you belong to that party, or you belong to that study, or that mentality, or that's not true. That's not true. That's like reassigning. So no, if you would do that, then every thought that would come to your mind would simply be in every political ideology, idea, political party. Political parties are created by humans. They are constantly created. They're not always funded. They're not always popularized. They're not always promoted. There's competition. There is negativity. There's positivity. There's belief. There's faith. There's so many things. But to label people, now if you're affiliated with an organization of any kind, it doesn't have to be political, then you have proof that you are in that group. But sometimes labels are used for people in one arena and another arena, the same word, and it'll be all a lie. Because if you're using a word that's saying crickly, crickly, oh, you're a crickly. Oh, the crickly said that. Crickly, the crickly. What crickly? How can those be crickly and those be crickly if those are not from there and those are from there, from that group and that's from that affinity groups? No, it's not right to use crickly, because crickly is some kind of placeholder. You can't use a placeholder and say it's that. That's that's like playing tricks. A zero, a number. It doesn't have value. It doesn't have significance. It doesn't have weight. It has it just separates what does have value, and to make sure that there's not a confusion when it comes to proportions. And you always feel that you have to emphasize or mention things, and because you don't really want things to be taken the wrong way. But you can't prevent someone from, unless you're tutoring them, you're teaching them, you're helping them to understand things. And you can't expect anyone to grasp everything, the main idea, the points, or correct you on anything. No, sometimes it can happen. Sometimes there could be a submission to what another person's opinion is, to improve a practice. I had I witnessed a professor, a lady professor, that dictionaries are good to use when it comes to language learning. Uh, we all have to, you know, embrace other people's diction, or lexicon, or slang. So everything. So without dictionaries, how would we know? How would we know what they're saying? So uh, my mother was told that because it was a type of method, a bad method, an evil method, to make sure that the class was not paying attention to my mother. Because my mother had more knowledge, my mother was more of a senior, as she was a senior citizen, and my mother was someone who had experience in pedagogy and studying and reading and dictionaries, and speaking and listening. So, when you have experience in communication and working with people skills, and all those things, you are going to be an authority. So the 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 professor was trying to take away that authority and say, "No, I'm the professor. I Whatever I say has to go. I'm the dictator." So it's not right. That's lying to the class, saying dictionaries aren't good. Now, some of the students are going to grasp, um, that's a silly thing to say, or some students are going to grasp, yeah, it's right. If the professor says this, like, if the professor says it, then dictionaries aren't important. And others are going to be like, I don't care what the professor says. Dictionaries are important. No, you can't take away your free will. You can't take away your thoughts. Concentrating on what you're studying and what you're listening to, is also a choice. It's a choice. Ultimately, you have to choose whether you're listening because you want to focus on some particular assignment, or because you know what's going to go on a test, you want to just grasp the content for your own personal studies of that course, or you want to focus on just graduating fast. No, you can graduate fast, but the more you study, the more you know, the faster and well you'll graduate. I had a student once call me over the phone, and she said uh, I was tutoring at the time, and I had my number in a database. So she contacted me, and she was begging and pleading for me to go to her classroom and cheat for her. And number one, this is against academic integrity, so of course I didn't do it. Number two, I explained to her, do you have to take another class after this? If you have to take the second part of this class, you have to study it. You have to know it well, because if you don't, the next time you take the consecutive course, you're not going to understand it well. You didn't show that you organization, um, the scheme of things. So, what people sometimes or usually do is look for stability in a job, so that the job can be a permanent job and they can rely on their work to maintain their home life and expenses. That's the usual thing. Um, some people don't want stability; they want to move around, so they prefer jobs that are not going to be permanent. But it's important to recognize if you are in an organization or company or project that is fraudulent, because you don't want that kind of association. It's like if you're with someone and the person commits a crime, like stealing from a store, and you're with that person, then of course you're going to both be in trouble, even if one of you did not commit the crime. So that's the same with organizations. That's the same with companies. That's the same with projects. That's the same with anything that involves capital gains, or not only capital gains, but mm, it's part of understanding well where you're situated. The laws and the there's a difference between laws that are type like policies and regulations, and laws that are just based on the notion that they are incorrect, that they're essentially Nobody teaches you these things. You have to, unless you take courses in. Uh, but if you watch it on television, it's not the same. You have to know the names of what are illegal things. You have to know the concept of it, and then you have to go to the policies and see and notice. But if you don't know any of those things, you're up a creek without a paddle. Up a creek or up a river? I think up a creek. It's dangerous grounds, and then you would have to be proved innocent because you didn't know. So you're innocent. You were not knowledgeable, or guilty, as in like you know it was wrong, and you were part of it. So you're guilty as charged. It's tough. When it comes to work, it's tough. So sometimes you go by what's on television or what's verifiable, but being promoted doesn't mean legal. So can you imagine? Wow. You're not born knowing things, so you're born knowing some things, but not social things. Nothing that's social is known when you are. Uh, it has to be cultivated. It has to be kind of like introduced to you, or uh, you're you're gonna have to figure it out. And you know, things in life involve figuring out things, and sometimes leading and sometimes obeying. But it's never easy. That's why having a free will and having a good conscience and understanding where you are in life and figuring it out and praying to God and hoping for the best and having faith that you'll be saved, all those things are good. And I was gonna say something else, but I digressed to important things that matter a lot. Mm. I know a lot of people out there that don't know the words felony, arson. Those are illegal things. Those are really bad things. So those are important to know well and understand how to apply it. Understand how to apply the knowledge of it for the greater good, right? Of not committing crimes, of doing good things, of staying away from dangers, or taking on challenges that are to defend others. A study of what you should do. Ethics, morals. Some people say, but morals contradict each other. Well, then you have to not only have a compass to know how to direct yourself, but you have to know the varieties of ethics involved, and know which one truly you can subscribe to when it comes to something urgent. I remember a priest once said, just make sure you don't harden your heart. And I thought to myself, well, isn't there the case that sometimes you have to harden your heart? Apathy, for example. They used to say that apathy was something that a surgeon would have to have. A doctor, someone who's going to perform an emergency, or um, it's an emergency, of course, an invasive kind of surgery. They have to have the apathy against blood. They have to have the apathy against someone being in pain, like screaming or moaning. So they have to have that lack of sensitivity, because if at that moment they're sensitive to the screams and the blood or anything like that, they're not going to be able to perform the surgery. So it could be like a mood that's turned on and off, a mindset for sure. Uh, I think it's very important. Urgency in human life, that's vital. Human life and human life is always vital. Wow, that's really it's really a hard topic. I wouldn't call it hard. Hard isn't hard to understand, but um, kind of hard to swallow. Hard to swallow, not as a lie, but hard to swallow as in being too challenging to swallow. Nothing is too challenging, but there comes a time that we're all at different energy levels, that we have diverse knowledge, that we have lack of experience or experience. Um, in geology, there are three movements that are studied or applied to when it comes to continental rock. There's divergent movement, convergent movement, convergent, divergent, and I think fault. Uh, well, the fault is when you slide together. They slide together instead of another kind of movement. Convergent is when one goes to the bottom and the other one to the top. One is submissive, one is oppressive or dominant. So one's going to go in, one's going to go down, one's going to go up. That's convergence. One on top of the other. They have to choose, right? The movement is going to just one's going to go downward and the other one has no choice but to just kind of like allow that downward movement, and then boom, it's a conversion movement, convergent, like that, one on top and one in the bottom, like that. One's going downward and the other one's going upward. And it's convergent. Divergent is like this, moving away. Divergent, I believe so. You can verify that, so you can correct it at any time. But know your source, though. Know your source. But we do live in a world that there can be small groups that use a word in ways that are not academic. They use it in a phrase of their own, or they just don't see it. It's not in their vocabulary. That whole concept of it. Like if everything were an illusion, right? As an individual, a person will see reality in a way that's going to be their own. And that just enters into common sense of what we are looking at. Mm, but it's not going to be exact for everyone because some people are going to see different colors of it. Some people are not going to see any. It's like computers. There used to be IBM computers and IBM compatible computers, but others were Apple computers. Would you say they're different species? Mm, no, not really. So our genetic traits can vary in various forms. There are some people that do believe in jinn, that they're beings of light, but we have artificial intelligence, so a technology that can create beings made of light. That's something in physics and in the studies of energy. So can there be beings of light, and but they're also believed to just pop up out of nowhere and have a visual. Wait. See, we're trying to use imagination and myth to create a type of mm, phenomena to say, well, let's keep our eyes open in case, oi, in case we do see a jinn. It sounds like a hologram. If you think about it, a jinn is like a hologram. But does nature just boom, boom, pops up holograms? Maybe. There was a day when I was about, I was about 8 years old. 8 years old, yeah. Because it was a time that I was already settled here in Miami, and I was um, I wasn't in school yet, and I was 8. And life events kind of tell you when you're 8 or not. Um, I talking to relatives that live next door to us. To us, I was talking to family members, and I saw on the floor next to the fence what looked like dinosaurs, and I was, what am I seeing? I saw this right on the floor, and they look like little they look like a little hazy thing, like but they were fighting, and I was thinking, this is like watching something on television. So it was one dinosaur that was, it was obviously a Tyrannosaurus Rex, because I did like um, dinosaur, identifications, and before I came to Miami, I had in Los Angeles, I had a little booklet of dinosaurs, and I would flip it and flip it. It was one of those long. You would fold it. It was a folding book of dinosaur names with pictures, and it was there. And I was thinking, my head must have projected that, and I'm just seeing something that I'm kind of dreaming. It was a haze right there in front of the kind of dinosaur, like a stegosaurus, and I kept seeing them battle right there, but they weren't. I thought, are these lizards? No, they were a hazy kind of thing. So that haze either came from my head, or they were the graphics, the interface, uh, and I'm using interface, or but it was automatic. It was not out of free will. It was automatic, or it was a type of jinn that was just a hologram in nature. So if there are holograms in nature, can these holograms, like apparitions, for example, can these holograms have force fields where they can touch you and you can feel the pressure on your flesh, on your skin, on your nerve endings, on your nerve endings? Can something I had I remember someone mentioning that they didn't, not that they had a dream, but that they felt that a dead person had come to them in the middle of the night and started hitting their head. So I guess if you're um, more into materialism and reality, you might be skeptical and say, "Oh no, that was not something physical. That was something imaginary. That never really happened." The past is the past. It's no longer something that's happening. It happened. So whether, the word materialize has different meanings. It can have a meaning saying it just started to foam up from an energy and create and started to create its own pack of you know it started to just group together energies into creating uh, an object, into becoming an object. In simulations you can do that, but in real life, well, it's hard to believe in my environment, in the social environment, to say that that can happen, that something can materialize, come out of nothing, come out of energies and antimatter or whatever. I don't know. Uh, but what about the opposite? Spiritualize. Something just poofs out of nowhere. Okay. Skepticism. Oh, it's faith that saves you. It's faith that it's your belief system that produces things. Popular opinion, maybe, but also it has to have a catalyst there. So to just go off and, yeah, there are imaginations and there are um, theories. Theories are imaginations with a lot of explanations and descriptions, but if you take away all those descriptions, a theory becomes something nonsense. It becomes unintelligible. It's like it's we always used to take it personally, and as far as I remember, when someone would say, "Oh, that's you," it's nonsense. It's unintelligible. Well, you feel like, well, I was just offended. But what was offensive was thought as like saying you're crazy or there's something wrong with you. But if you notice, the comment is not supposed to say that. It's trying to say, a person is trying to say, I don't understand. I need more information. So a person can be told descriptions and take it as a treasured thing. Maybe they won't tell you that they're taking it as a treasured thing, but they're treasuring it as a theory because you gave descriptions. So that's a big hypocrisy that we have in society, that one person can say something contrite and it can, and the full phrase of it can just sound so unprofessional, amateur, that you won't respect it until it is described with a lot of different styles and very organized, very narcissistic, not narcissistic, sorry, avoidant. Avoidant people that have avoidant attachments tend to have more structure, that I've noticed in their writings, more structure. So they seem more professional, more scientific, more cold. But people that have the other kind of attachment, anxious attachment. And I'm not saying the exceptions or the branching offs of like different types of anxious attachment and different types of avoidant attachments. I'm saying that an anxious attachment, a person that has experienced anxious attachment, that is an author or writes something. Uh, when you write, you're an author if it's not published, but it's okay. You can just say a recognized author in some secular world, or it doesn't matter. When you are when a person has anxious attachment or is prone to it, or a trend to it, I mean tendency to it, that person is going to write in a more disorganized way compared to the anxious attachment. And that's what I've noticed. I'm not sure if you've noticed it too, or if it's just an exaggeration, or it is in high population of the writers that have insecure attachment, or that have had moods of or pouts of or moments of insecure attachment. I recognized in myself in life to have anxious attachment and ambivalent, anxious and avoidant attachment. Um, I think it could be just a change of life. It could be a fluctuation. I've mentioned in the past, okay, I want to feel, I'm going to feel, or I'm going to be more myself. That's nonsense. There's no, when it comes to personality, it doesn't have to be the same personality. It doesn't have to be the character, the personality. Well, more like the personality. Yeah, some people consider it character too. It doesn't have to be the same. We change over time. It's normal. It's natural. It's a metamorphosis, and it's going to probably involve different facial feature. I mean, not features. Different facial expressions, different corporal language, but that for some is going to be an imaginary change, and for others it's going to be a change that they have noticed. That's perception. Not everyone has high perception. Not everyone has high senses and perception when it comes to personality. It's when it comes to the viewer, the viewer, that personality of that viewer. um it's, if you use Myers-Briggs, for example, you'll notice that it wants to say that um, you either have senses that are heightened or something. You're considered more of a person that's uh, observant, uh, that to grasp a lot of data when they use their senses, or a person that perceives beyond their senses into something deeper, more maybe grasping things depending on your measures of spirituality, or measures of character, uh, whatever you want to call the classifications they use. So that's Myers Briggs in a little, how do I put it, in a surreal way. Now, if your voice changes and all that, a person with perception can imagine a whole different array of things, and a person that's sensing would just recognize something more, mm, less of jumping to the conclusion, more of just picking up on, it was a voice that resembled this or that was of this pitch and this volume. So no, when it comes to um, I do like the assessment by Briggs Meyer. It is a type of assessment that requires belief that it's true, and then you start to see how it's true, how it's applied. So if you don't believe in it, you won't be able to use it. Some things require belief and require application based on filling in gaps. So that's why life is so unfair, because we're all constantly judging each other. We're all constantly judging each other on what we sense and perceive. And that's a little bit of a depressing thought. So maybe you shouldn't see it as that, but you could see the inverse of it and the exceptions for them, or not even acquire that kind of word. Maybe you can just say perish thought. Depends, right? How deep do you want your knowledge to be? Because once you have a deep knowledge, you'll have to choose what to think, what to believe, what to focus on. And sometimes it's a pragmatic thing, if I'm using the word correctly. Pragmatic, there's pragmatics and pragmatic. So sometimes you just have to be quick on your feet and do it, you know, fast without a lot of consideration. And sometimes you have to do the opposite and be thorough and have a lot of consideration. So, you know, it's embarrassing sometimes when you choose something that you know is going to be um, hurtful for some, offensive for some, like in a room, for example, and it's going to be beneficial for others, or it's going to be beneficial for everyone, even though it's going to be insulting, be hurting, making them get upset, but it could even save a person's life. I remember the movie. What was it called? And this is a phrase I was seen in the commercials, which the commercials were the best part. The previews were the best part of certain movies, especially in the 1990s. No, you could say every time, not only in the 1990s. It was just that I was a teenager in the 1990s. So I was a child and a teenager. Yeah. And sometimes, well, and I had responsibilities of an adult too. So the movie was called, what was it called? I know the actor is called Nick. I mean, his name is, or his Hollywood name, or his actual name is, let me see. I see his face, so let me see if I can just remember his name. Let me see. Anyway, I'll say the phrase. You'll probably know who the actor is, or the movie, or some other interpretation of it, or you've read the script. But he said this phrase, which could be in other types of books or writings. It's a very short phrase. You can't handle the truth. I don't really want to say it the way he said it. He said it in a very, I mean, so can we handle the truth? It depends what the truth is and what is in one context. So truth usually has to involve something that you can observe. And perception is true as in what you're seeing, what you're feeling, what you're recognizing, what you are noticing. But not true in a physical way. There's always been the idea in fictional works that things can be created with thought. We see it in simulations that you can create things by thought, but to say in the physical world, can things be created by thoughts? The power of the mind, can it be that powerful? So those are phenomenons, or those are paranormal things. Paranormal means next to normal, not usually what's commented as being normal, or not, or more skeptic, in a way skeptical, as the value of being, part of skepticism. Skepticism is a belief. There you go. It's like a religion. So if you are a person that's a skeptic, that's because it's your religion. If I once had an experience where I was in a class and we were told to, it was a psychology class, and we were told to try to transmit a thought, a word, a concept, and we were looking straight at an image, and the one of the someone there was a skeptic, and they started to move their face like that, like no, no, no. That's because that person was a skeptic. So that person was either telling me don't do it, or that person was saying, I'm a skeptic. I don't believe in this. So I looked at her and I said, there are skeptics in the room. But there's the joke on me. What if she was trying to say, don't do it? I interpreted it as her saying, no, there's no such thing. You can't. She was probably more into hardening her heart so that whatever I was going to transmit to her, she would, the vibes of it were not going to penetrate her guard. Her guard. She had a guard up saying no, no, because she was a skeptic. That was her religion. And as a skeptic, that's, if she had stopped being a skeptic and she had believed that yes, I can transmit a thought, an idea to her, she would have grasped it in her own way. It did not have to match the actual image as a sense. It could have been more of a perception. So we either perceive something that's being transmitted or we sense what's being transmitted. It's basically the reality of it if you are a person, a human. You're not a jinn. If you're a jinn, I would question that you could have that. See, I'm being a skeptic right there. Hey, that's my religion, then I'm a skeptic. Sometimes I wonder, does being a theist mean that you do believe that you are feeding a god? The god, or one god in particular? Or, you know, I mean, sometimes I do wonder if an atheist is just someone that doesn't worship or doesn't talk to, doesn't meditate or talk to a higher source. Um, how you perceive your God or our God is a different thing. Sensing God, perceiving God. Um, I do believe that God is everywhere, but just like in chemistry and chemistry is a physics. It's a physical science. Just like in chemistry, you do recognize that good things, bad things, certain substances, they exist in a certain area, but it's shared with what is not that as well. So there you go. You can say God is everywhere, but you can't say God is occupying the same. You can say God is also occupying the same space in our realm with things that are not God. So when you apply it to the words love and good, you can notice that. And you can say God is love, God is good. Then you can notice how God can be in the same parameter as things that are not God. Humans, we can submit to God or we can not submit to God. So there's where A human can be taken with disrespect, unfortunately, not liked, not loved. How many people haven't been martyrs? And they weren't seen or perceived as being God, but were they at that moment submitted to God? And others were treating them like, I saw what you did or I heard what you said. If it was true or a misunderstanding, that's a major thing. That's a major thing. History, culture, and myth. All those things are so interesting. Geography changes, the geography of the world, the names of it, and the physical characteristics of the world. And sometimes it's by season. I remember grandma and there is a phrase in American Spanish. In American Spanish, and it could be, it probably is integrated already in the dictionary of La Academia Real, the the Royal Academy of Spain, La Academia Real. It could be integrated into those sets of dictionary, but the word is tiempo, but with the meaning of the variant meaning of it being about weather. So tiempo is most commonly used as a word meaning time. In music, you can see it in the Latin or Italian word, which is probably Italian for music. Um, tempo, which means the speed of something. So a person will look at the sky and say, "Mm, I'm only looking at the time. Solamente estoy viendo el tiempo." That could be more like I'm looking at the speed of the clouds. Because if you notice the speed of the clouds, or if you notice how the clouds look, you can tell if it's going to rain. You could say it's a myth, but it is related to it. So like a pattern, like a pattern. So you could say, well, it's gonna rain. It really does depend on your location. If that is true in your location, if it's going to rain, the speed of the clouds will tell you if there's going to be wind, like a lot of wind, because all that is about convections, the convections of the gases, which is our atmosphere. So there is no, when it comes to weather, there's no 100% way of measuring these convections in a popular scale, or like in an applicable scale per person. But correct me if I'm wrong, or create it if it doesn't exist. Clouds, I have a book on the chemistry of clouds. I find it to be very interesting, a great reference. It's interesting how in libraries you see people just putting books and saying these are references, you can't take them. All books are important, but reference books are usually seen with more, mm, I don't know, it's what you use to refer to. Why aren't they allowed to be taken out of the libraries? It could be a myth about it, an excuse. It could be just we like it so much that we just have them here and we don't want anyone to have it and use it and might not bring it back. Or it could be an excuse for something. It could be, well, we have it here really so people can kind of think these are the important things. So they begin to like it and want to be part of it industrially. So you can be in an industry and change roles in it. You can see an industry like a pyramid scheme, but in a good way. So you can see it as a pyramid, Like when I mentioned period, I mentioned the ranks, like the the elite and everything below it. Or if you're into the how do I put it, switching the switching the pyramid, then it's everything above it. So what's below and what's above has nothing to do with what's better or worse, because, for example, you could say it's better to be grounded. It's better to have a good, a wise life. Not saying it's better to be low. If you're saying it's good to look at the clouds and imagine things, the pareidolia of it, then you're saying that it's better to be high. So, is it better to be low or high? That's silly. There's no good or bad way when it comes to low and high. It's only how you're looking at it and you apply it to something. So these are all organizational devices, the measures of things in different forms and realms and what have you. Parameters. So yeah, I do like the word para, but I don't agree with it seeing as a bad thing when you say paranoia, um, pareidolia is different. It's different. It's a different spelling. It doesn't have the Greek roots to it, and they call it Greek, so it's because it's part of the Greek. It's attributed to Greece, so, and that's considered Western, Western knowledge and Western civilization, but people travel. People are not just situated somewhere forever. So people will diversify and they'll bring back. There's import and export of everything in cultures and civilization. And after travels, are we Western civilization? Wouldn't you say we're a civilization or many civilizations? And but Eastern and Western hemispheres are, come on, to say that we're separated or different, that's shallow. That's a stereotype. That's labeling. That's perception, or it's perceiving things that are not perceived by everyone. No, because when you respect each other, you could notice some things and say, I think you're from here, from there. I think you are this or that. We all have a name, and if we all don't have a name, that's something. Oh, no, 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 no. It's better to have free will, have your own name. Gosh, can you imagine not having a name, to be told you don't have any identification? You're just considered like one cell of a whole tissue and don't have a name. Ah, you have noticed that in literature, there was a book called "The Boy Called It." It was about a boy that was mistreated and abused by his own mother. It doesn't matter if she was biological or not, but the story of it is a story, so it doesn't really say what things he did. So it's understood that whatever he did, it was not worth um, being treated that way, that badly. Mm, it's not an issue of who deserves or who doesn't, but really that book was to move us into, as pre-service teachers, into having a type of well, kidnapping. but legal and completely authorized to say there's something you noticed and you should report it. And that's a thing. Red flags are not always the same for everyone. So if you see it's totally dependent on reality. What is the reality? I was taken away because I had too many towels. I did not have too many towels. I had towels because um, my mom kept her old towels in a container. That was her right, and that was in case she needed it for a quick cleanup. She had it handy. I had towels that I had bought, and well, it was more affordable to buy the big pack. So I had a sauna towel and little towels, and I would use that to dry my mom. And I had kitchen towels. It came in a pack. Also more affordable. It was more affordable to buy it by mail than to buy it in person. So because the cost that I would have had to have to go to the store, cost and time, I simply had that amount of towels. It was a big home. I mean, it was big enough to have towels. So for someone to say and get you in trouble, to separate you from your family member just because they perceived towels as something being too much. These were clean towels. The the sensibility of the environment, that apathy that I live. It's hard for anyone to imagine that in a nice touristic place something like that could happen. But look at all places that are touristic. You don't see a variety of people there. Like if they don't all exist, you don't see them in public. Maybe that was the issue. Maybe I was supposed to be seen in public, to be taken as not a stranger. No, freedom is something that we should all value and respect of others. My freedom was not respected. I was seen as an alien. Not an alien as an extraterrestrial, not an alien as not legally having the right to be in my own country. I was just seen as an alien, a stranger. I didn't see myself as being strange. I was perceived as being strange. And everybody's job was on the line. So they took me like this little insignificant object because it was in their head. I have to do this or I'll get fired. I have to do this because this is what I believe in. I have to do this because I don't see another option. I have to. Apathy. But you can say it's more than apathy, wouldn't you say? For people to do such a thing to a person, to treat them as an object for 2 years? For 2 years, being treated like an object, like a ball, like a toy, like an ingredient, like a slot machine. Oh, I was a slot machine, right? Everybody was just pulling on me, getting money, getting whatever. It didn't have to be money. It could have been seeing me like a vending machine. Putting money in, getting what they want, using me for 2 years. Not saying, hey, just go home, no problem. Go home, it's all right. You can go home. Your mom, she's fine. She's great. She's better than ever. Just take her back home and keep taking care of her the way you were. She'll get better. She's not in hospice anymore. No, nobody. No, everybody was in their own world, in their own delusion, and treating me as an object. I remember a young man. I call him a young man, a man who brought in some equipment for my mother's bed. Was it that? Or some medical equipment. And he said to me, you know, these houses, there are like a lot of houses where people are just hooked up to machines. He felt really disturbed by the idea. And I took care of my mom without having her hooked up to anything. I would hook them up to her, then disconnected, connected. I would cook in the living room. I put my microwave there, my blender, everything, so she wouldn't be scared of saying, "Where are you? Can't see you. You're not in the room." That anxiety that she had. She wouldn't say it. She would just show her expressions every time I would leave the room. She would get anxious. She had an anxious attachment. She was my mother. Families are supposed to have attachments together. Well, I don't know nowadays if people don't have any attachments to each other, so they're like, conditioned or affected or automated or something. I don't want to be offensive. I would take her to her doctor's appointments. I would communicate with her doctors over the internet, over the phone and over the internet. I would make sure that I had extra help so that I wouldn't be exhausted. Now, when everybody went on vacation, I did suffer a little bit of exhaustion there, but just a little bit. It had to do with one incident that I took her to the bathroom, and when I brought her back, she there was a lot of stuff to clean, so I made sure to clean and clean everything else. And then then since everything was clean, I went to sleep. I was self-conscious about not being awake in the daytime. She was fine, but I was self-conscious about not having that 9 to 5 hour thing. When I took sleep medicine, a little ache right there. We were told that it's the normal way for the body to just kind of stay awake an extra hour every day until it cycles back in a week, because we use a calendar that involves weeks. Does everyone do that? No, probably some civilizations among us do not use that kind of calendar that involves weeks and months and years. Oh, these are what people call aliens. It's not fair. It's not fair for someone just because they're of a different civilization or of a different, they're just among us, to be considered an alien. They have their private lives. They move in their own trajectories, or they are situated somewhere permanently. But boom, to be considered an alien. We're going to have to all just kind of feel like, it's okay to feel like an alien. Usually the term is alienated. You feel alienated. So don't we all feel alienated sometimes? I think so. I think we all have moments that we feel alienated. Unless we're just so hardwired into a philosophy that we don't feel anything else. But there has to be a moment that we're picking up something. That's not part of our philosophy. There has to be. Often people will just say, I don't understand. I don't, it just doesn't, get absorbed. Sometimes it feels scary. Sometimes things that are new usually are scary. Things that you don't know where they're going to be led to are scary. Um, wow, protecting your heart, protecting your mind. Wow, that is such a personal thing. Protecting your soul. That is such a personal concept. Such a personal concept. So yeah, I mean, it's important to be grateful to God for life, but to blame everyone for negative things or bad things, I think that's a perception issue um, that can be, you know, God God doesn't want us to perceive things in a bad way. God wants us to be happy. Perception. Well, you definitely don't want to accept anything abusive, such as hurting your flesh, or you don't want to take it personal if it's accidental. Oh my God. There's so many things. So we can forgive each other. We can say, please forgive me. My mom used to be very hard on forgiveness. She didn't believe in she didn't believe in revenge, but when it came to forgiveness, she was like, this is not going to happen again. You're not going to do this to me again. And of course, I'm mentioning something that was considered an accident. Oh, at work, she would get her feet, you know, stepped on in the elevator, and she said to the person, "No more sorry." Animalistic ones. Right. So for each other to control and just control our lower instincts to not express them.